Okay, we are here with school board candidate Robbie Staenberg. Robbie, great to see you. Thanks for stopping by. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're running for the school board?
Yeah, well, it's great to be here. Thank you all for having me and taking the time to interview me. I appreciate it. Um, so, my name is Robbie Staenberg. I am a pretty young Santa Monica resident. I'm 30. I went to our K through 12 schools, to Franklin, Lincoln, and Santa Monica High School, where I graduated in 2014, which at once to me sounds like yesterday, but as and maybe to some people listening will sound even closer than yesterday, but is a fair ways back. Anyway, I then went to Columbia where I studied history and political science, and then joined Teach for America where I was placed in Oakland. I was hired by a high school in East Oakland. It was a Title I school, and I taught for about 5 years. I taught social studies, our ninth grade writing course, which I created, and then in my second year there, I introduced AP American Government. Um, I initially was on a preliminary credential, and then I cleared my full teaching credential, which may not sound like much, but in California is a pretty complicated process. Um, so after that, I came back to Santa Monica and started working for our assembly member, Rick Zabur. Um, and so, I think this gives me a lens of experiences that I think will be additive to the board. I obviously attended our schools, but it's given me a bit of a K through 12 lens that's not too far off. I have the experience of teaching at a Title I school. Title I, for those who don't know, is a federal designation about around income level of students. So I have that teaching experience. Then, of course, I bring an understanding of the state legislative process and policy making that I think will be additive. Um, I've lived, since I grew up here, I've lived all around Santa Monica, but I'm currently between Idaho and Montana on 3rd Street, in an apartment that I rent with my partner. So that's a quick summary about me. Would you like me to talk a little bit about the board, or I don't want to monopolize all our time?
Let's just get into the questions. I'll
Okay.
tee you up. So you continue to go on the same, description. You talk about your three unique qualifications: credentialed teacher, state legislative experience, and former slash relatively recent student.
Yes.
So we hear a lot about the needs for current parents. That's a common refrain. Well, can you speak about the specific perspectives that those three roles provide you and how you would apply those three lenses specifically into the work of the school board?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, frankly, I think having seven 30-year-old former teachers who don't have students in the district wouldn't be a good thing. But I think having one will be additive. As of now, the seven school board members either in one case have a child in the district or have had kids in the district. So I think that I will be a nice addition to that. I think that the experience of going through our SMMUSD schools from K through 12 is a valuable experience because, I mean, whether you're talking about racial inequities and, depending on who you speak to about that, a lot of the experiences that people reference are from a report that was written 2 years after I graduated from Santa Monica High School. And so the firsthand experience I bring there, I think, will be useful. I certainly would agree with the opinion that we should have board members who have kids uh, in our K through 12 schools. Do I think it needs to be all seven myself? I don't. I don't think that, but I think having a balance is great. And at the same time, I think having someone who's spent time teaching in a K through 12 school is critically important. That can be difficult to have in most school districts because if you teach in a district, you're usually ineligible to be on the school board because you're sort of your, for lack of a better term, your boss's supervisor, and that makes a conflict. But in a lot of other districts, there's a emphasis on trying to have board members who are teachers because, of course, one of the big things you do in the school board is yes, work with the superintendent, but of course also work with our teachers and understanding the challenges that teachers deal with, understanding the tools available to them, and what can be helpful and what can be quite frustrating or difficult as a K through 12 teacher. So, uh, That'd be my long answer.
And then the third one was the legislative. Uh, so are there specific things in your lens through working in Rick's office that, when you're thinking of being in the school board, you would be able to navigate that system better?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there is obviously so much on a policy level in our K through 12 schools that is set from the state. And I think the other part of that is that the state is constantly passing legislation that affects the schools. And having a window into that, both as it's coming and also once those bills are enacted, I think would be very useful. The district obviously, tries to stay on top of that, but I think that having a board member who's actively involved with the legislature and the legislative process would definitely be additive. And that's something that whether discussing with other board members or in confidential conversations I've had with district staff, I've heard that repeatedly that it would be useful to know what's coming, understand it, and be able to get answers quickly on
Great.
upcoming policy.
Awesome. Okay, Lynn.
Hi, Robbie. Good to see you. Am I to understand then from what you just said that you will continue working with Rick Saber while being a board member?
Yes, that's my plan. I had a long conversation with the ethics department in the state assembly, and they didn't see any issue. The only challenge would be anything that's a direct conflict, in which I would obviously recuse myself. But we went over a lot of the recent board business, and there are very rare conflicts. Or let me rephrase that: conflicts are very rare between what Rick's office is doing and the board. But if there were any conflicts, I would absolutely recuse myself.
Okay, great. It was really interesting reading that you were a social studies teacher and that you actually created an AP government test. That was really impressive. My actual question is, you worked on the bill introduced by Rick
Mhm.
requiring schools to train teachers on supporting LGBTQ plus students. Do you know whether or not that training has been rolled out yet in the district?
Yes, I believe it has, and I can follow up with you and find out exactly, what data we have on the success there. Um, I think that bill, I can say uh, from some of the work that Rick's office did on it is, I don't think that SMMUSD was one of the target areas where the training was most needed, but I think that the requirement nonetheless, yeah, has been implemented here.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Marcy.
How do you see your ability in a different way to balance your experience as a teacher and being a board member would be different from those who are parents who have not been educators?
Yeah, I think it's the way I look at that. I think it's a great question. Is that the two go together very well? Um, I think that in the same way that the best classroom has engaged students, passionate teachers, and engaged and dedicated parents. If you miss any one part of that equation, the classroom falls apart, or at least that student's education falls apart. And so I see my role in the same way as bringing one of those components to the equation. So I look forward to working with parents, board members, teachers, and our students to understand what is necessary. Did that answer your question? Okay.
Okay, Sean.
Hi, Robbie. Thanks for joining us. In your questionnaire, you discussed how, while there's been significant enrollment decline in the past, that it seems like the enrollment declines may have stabilized. Do you have concerns that there may be some longer term trends towards a reduction in enrollment? And what can be done to kind of address that and keep that enrollment relatively stable or to improve it? And is there a connection to the issue of affordable housing for families in particular in our community on these enrollment?
Sorry, it was breaking up there a little bit at the end.
Oh, so no, so is there a connection between kind of these enrollment numbers and affordable housing access, particularly for families in our community?
Well, I'll take the last part of that question first because that's the easiest and say yes. I think there definitely is a connection there, of course. Um, more power to the folks who can afford a $5 million or 10 million, however much the some of our houses in North Montana area are going for with 5 bedrooms and have space for a large family. But as someone who's spent some time looking for apartments in Santa Monica, the multi-bedroom housing stock is can be limited, and I think that that obviously can dissuade families. In the questionnaire, what I was addressing is the fact that enrollment has declined dramatically, but has stabilized in the last couple of years, and that I think is a very good sign. And I think one of the questions for the board going forward is how do we both maintain that plateau, as in make sure it does not continue, the decline doesn't continue, and if possible, reverse that. And one of the I think we have to break these down between some of the expensive long-term policy designs and some of the shorter-term fixes that might be, maybe not as massively significant, but could be helpful. And one of those kind of smaller things that I think we can do is spend more time as a board and as a school district working with the rest of the community to make sure that folks who are either they have elementary school kids or are new to Santa Monica get a chance to see how amazing, especially the high school is. But also all these new buildings. I mean, I was on a tour of the high school with some elementary school families that the current board put together, and I think everyone who I was walking with was wowed by some of these new facilities. And there can be a perception that, Santa Monica High School is not equivalent to Crossroads or Brentwood or other private schools. And obviously, most families can't afford to send their kids to those schools, but there are many in Santa Monica who can. And I think we have the opportunity to show families that we have excellent public schools with excellent facilities. And to encourage them to keep their students in public schools. So that's just one of the free solutions I think we could work on. Then of course housing is a longer term question, and having that's outside the role of the board in terms of I mean there is a question around workforce housing for the board, but in terms of the way housing intersects with our school system, of course, having the kind of housing that allows families to live in Santa Monica is critical.
Thank you. Okay, anybody in the queue? Okay, I have one more for you, Robbie. Um, so you said in your questionnaire that you hadn't heard about any serious discussion to amend Measure GS, but they actually are moving forward with plans to amend Measure ULA in LA, and
Yeah.
there's similar discussions in Santa Monica happening about exempting multifamily buildings and nonprofit buildings from GS. At least one person running for city council supports doing this. Some of the people on your endorsement list are also among the supporters of that. So if that was a ballot measure to amend GS to exempt multifamily or nonprofit developments, would you support that or would you oppose it?
Um, if that was going to be put on the ballot,
Right.
and would that affect the $10 million the schools receive?
Well, that's the question. There could be
But
less. There could be less income from it, or there could be. Some people say there would be more income from it.
right. Well, I suppose the first thing I have to say is I'd have to see the ballot measure. To make sure I can answer questions like that. My instinct is that right now, Measure GS is providing, I believe, $10 million a year to the school system. And I think that just to stay in the lane of someone running for school board, I think that any reduction to that is super problematic. And so my first question would be if there is a proposal to do that, how is that money being replaced or backfilled? And I think if there's not a clear answer to that, that the board and that district financial staff feel is a compelling and kind of bulletproof answer, then I would have a hard time supporting that. So, uh,
Okay.
it's hard to say without seeing that.
Sure.
And I will say I had not heard about that when I filled out the questionnaire. I don't know. I know ULA is going before the council now, but um, I haven't heard about that in Santa Monica. But you would know more than I would.
Okay. There's rumblings. Okay, any other questions? Not seeing any. Okay. Well, if you want to wrap up, we'll say goodbye.
Yes, is that you want me to say
Yeah.
something?
Any, I think that's the end. So,
Yes. Well,
yeah.
I know you have probably more interviews to do, so I'll just say I really appreciate your time. Thank you. I am very proud to be a member of the Democratic Club, and I really appreciate everyone's work on this. And I'm sure your Saturday, maybe Sunday, I don't know how many interviews you have to do. So, thank you. And it has been, of course, a pleasure to get to talk to many people here and also in the community about our public schools and see how SMUSD still has the power to unite people from a wide range of backgrounds in Santa Monica around the commitment to excellent public schools. And I would love to be part of keeping that alive in Santa Monica. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Robbie.